I'm Igor Kafetz, and this is The List Building Lifestyle, a podcast for anyone who wants to build a wildly profitable email list working from home. If you'd like to make six figures, travel the world, and help people improve their lives in the process, then this podcast is for you. I also invite you to attend a free workshop at igor.ac, where I'm teaching how I made $21,779.25 in affiliate commissions by sending just 481 clicks to my affiliate link in one day. I'm also explaining why I walked away from ClickBank and I don't promote ClickBank offers anymore, as well as the 5 things I look for in the perfect affiliate offer. I'm even going to show you the one-page website that I used to make over $500,000 in affiliate commissions this year, and I'll even bribe you to attend this workshop by giving you a $497 value course that shows you how to cherry-pick high-converting affiliate offers for your next affiliate promotion. In addition, I'll even give you the 3 offers I'm promoting right now that are making me money as we speak. All that and more at igor.ac. And now it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kafetz. I've been getting many questions from listeners asking how come we haven't been publishing as many episodes on the podcast as we used to. And the answer to this is because I've been really busy publishing and releasing and writing, obviously, our new book, The List Building Lifestyle. Now, this book is available on Amazon right now, and it's been quite a journey getting it to published and making it an Amazon bestseller, which it became within just 1 week of being published on Amazon. So, yes, I am an Amazon bestselling author as a result of, as you know it, just having a large responsive email list. Because as it turns out, most authors don't sell even 50 copies a year. And here we are releasing a book that sold over 2,500 copies. Now, as a result, this book being released, I got invited to speak at a few podcasts and conferences. And one of those interviews was conducted by Azul Tiranes from Born to Write, where he grilled me on what it was like to publish and release my book, because his podcast is for aspiring authors and writers who are trying to release a book and make a name for themselves. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to republish the interview I've done with Azul, where I went deep into what it took to publish my book, the 3 attempts that it took me to actually finish it, whether I was happy with it when I released it, how did I go about writing the book, and whether I actually wrote it or spoke it out or used a ghostwriter. So all of these questions that people are wondering about, what is it like to write and publish a book, especially an Amazon bestseller? Well, I answer all these questions in this interview. So without further ado, I give you Igor and Azul talking about what it's like to write and publish an Amazon bestseller.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Born to Write. Super excited to have Igor Kafetz here with me on the show. He's the author of the List Building Lifestyle Confessions of an Email Millionaire. Igor, welcome to the show.
Well, great to be here. I appreciate you hosting me and look forward to our chat.
Yeah. So what I found really interesting about your book, because authors who sometimes get immersed in this idea of their book as their journey, they forget that the most important part of writing a book is the person on the other end, which is building an audience. And I thought your book did a really great job of kind of like unpacking your journey of being an entrepreneur, creating a lifestyle around building an email list. And I really want to talk about it because I really think this conversation about email not being dead still needs to happen, in particular for authors. So let's just give them a peek into your book. I hope they read it. We'll list in the show notes. But why did you choose this topic as a way to kind of focus your attention now?
Well, there's 2 reasons. The first reason being is that email changed my life. I made pretty much all of my money using email marketing, and I still do to this day. And I don't feel that, at least my bank account isn't showing any signs of email stopping, because the company that I run has been growing usually every couple of years, right? So usually we see an increase in revenue, like a substantial one, every 2 years or so. Now, the other reason is very simple. The book is just a very good way to spread an idea, because you can put up a YouTube video, or you can run a podcast, and that's great. But when you put an idea into a book, people look at it differently. People people take it seriously. And then as a result, of course, they take you seriously because you had, the balls to publish a book. So, that kind of opens more doors. It increases your Q factor and overall helps you get the message across that is really important to you and your cause.
Right. And I think what you said there is that it increases your Q factor. It makes you more authoritative. And in the days and age of attention, any way you can make sure that you're the one that people should pay attention to is important. So, the world will catch up to what podcasts are, but the truth is so many people still don't know what they are. Blogs, even though we now use the internet widely, still don't gain the same authority as being an author. A book says, I spent time thinking about this. Here's my message. And it's a very traditional concept. So most people find it just comes with authority. Would you agree?
I agree absolutely, especially since I started with one of the methods that I tried initially to make money online and to spread my message, which was a message of financial prosperity, because I come from, I was born in Ukraine, and throughout my life, my family went mostly through just downs, financial downs all the time. And so I've used the internet to become prosperous, to make money, to become wealthy, to help my friends become wealthy, to improve the lives of the people around me. And I started out as one of the ways to spread this message. I chose blogging, and I blogged for 8 months nonstop. And the amount of content I wrote, to be honest with you, probably could fill 10 books. Because every day, I'm not kidding, every single day I wrote at least 700 to 1,000 words. An average book is about 32,000 words. So if you multiply 1,000 by 30 days by 8 months, you can see, I wrote 8 books or so. However, I haven't had a single inch of impact with my work. The most I've had as far as impact is concerned, I made a few sales in my, with some affiliate marketing, but, my message wasn't heard. My ideas did not spread. So eventually, at some point, I started putting my ideas into paid products on websites like ClickBank and other websites where you could sell information products, and that helped, right? I used paid advertising that helped more. But all throughout the years, there was one media which, I personally always admired, right? And people who kind of participated in that media were always on a pedestal for me personally. It was books, right? So when I think of authors, I think of people like, say, Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and, a bunch of people who are recognizable and are considered to be gurus or authorities in their space. So eventually, if you're considering to write a book, if you've been failing to launch your book up until this point, I think a very good thing to remember is that none of the authors that you now admire and respect and want to be more like have started out as authorities. Most of them became authorities as a result of publishing their books. But most of us think that it's the other way around, where you have to accomplish something before you can write a book. In my opinion, you would typically accomplish something as a result of writing a book.
Right. And I think that's it. I think people want permission to be an expert. I'll wait until I'm an expert, quote, expert at something, and then I'll do X. And I think you create authority by saying, hey, I have an idea or I have thoughts. In fact, in your book, you share a lot about failures. The thing about it is you don't have to be perfect to guide and lead people. You just have to be ahead of where they are, whether you're 1,000 feet ahead or just one step. And, you talk about your humble beginnings where you just were trying things. You didn't have it all worked out. And I think that's true for authorship too. So let's talk a little bit about some of your early missteps in entrepreneurship. And we'll talk about how that also can relate to early missteps in writing a book or sharing a message.
Sure. The thing you just mentioned, asking for permission or waiting for permission to write a book or publish any kind of content, I think it's one of the most common reasons for failure especially online, where, we want to become thought leaders and just in general leaders to a tribe. And we just wait for something to happen as if there is a rites of passage of some kind that's supposed to make us into authorities and give us permission to
right.
Go charge people for the help we want to provide them, or go just publish an interesting piece of information and make an impact that information, or, whatever. For example, you have a TED Talk, right? So some people would look at your TED Talk and think, oh, wow, so he's an authority because he's now has a TED talk, and that's awesome. And for example, my friend Dr. Sean Stevenson, who also has a TED talk, and as well as a bunch of other viral videos that I think collected over 25 million views. That helps at becoming an authority, but you really don't make any impact until and unless you put yourself out there like that. As far as myself, I've had 3.5 years worth of failures where I think I became an expert at my craft as a result of just trying everything that does not work. You know what I mean?
Right. That's so true. People want to buy other people's failures, basically, which I think that's a great way to, like, look, you've had a lot of failures, I trust you, rather than you've had a lot of successes, I trust you. Because if that person's had a lot of failures, that they're going to guide you towards a direction. Like, look, I did these million things that didn't work, but these things did. So I think that's a lot of why I think I was really drawn to the story in your book was, look, you weren't afraid to scrub toilets because that's what you had to do. You weren't afraid to lose some money. Man, it sucks to lose money. It sucks big time. But you can't have success without failures. And, every time you do something new, there's always the risk of failure. In fact, you could almost guarantee that there's going to be some failure.
It is. I mean, when you think about it, really, my friend John Carlton, who's widely considered to be one of the most ripped-off copywriters in the, I think, self-defense and golfing space, he speaks a lot about failure, and he says, look, anytime I'm trying something new, I want to fail as many times as possible, as fast as possible, because the moment I've gone through all the failures, I know what I'm doing. And as far as my own failures are concerned, whenever I think of the time when I worked in Burger King, for example, and I was a busboy, right? So I washed dishes, or when I worked in a hotel and I scrubbed toilets for a living, all of those times were more of like starter positions, and I hated my job back then with a passion. And I even quit my job prematurely and had to drag my ass back to work about a month later to beg for it back. But, now I'm grateful for those jobs existing because those are starter positions. And even on those starter positions, you could usually tell who's going to become successful and who isn't going to be successful, because so many people, whether they have a quote-unquote golden cage jobs, right, that pay really well, but they hate them, or whether they have starter position jobs that, just suck and they hate them, regardless, it's still something that helps you pay the bills. So if you're an aspiring author, I think you should be grateful for having a job if you have one, because then you can pay the bills, have, Wi-Fi, lights, running water in your house, and that allows you to focus on the bigger things, which is, bringing your ideas out into the world in an impactful way. But for example, if you go back to Ukraine, where I come from, before I moved to Israel and then to Canada, well, in Ukraine, people are concerned with survival, not so much with, making an impact. If you think
right.
of the, Maslow's pyramid of, needs. Well, the whole idea behind making an impact and living up to your true potential, that's like at the top of the pyramid, right? The bottom talks a lot about survival, wanting to be safe, needing food, needing shelter, needing, a lot of that stuff. And so that's what happens in countries like Ukraine that, where people struggle. So yeah, when I recall my failures and my starter jobs, I don't necessarily feel they taught me a lot. But I am grateful for having the chance to have them, because the very little money that I was making at those jobs allowed me to kickstart my business. Incidentally, though, you mentioned that it sucks to lose money. It really does suck to lose money, especially when you don't have a lot of it coming in. But I think that is one of the reasons why I was able to master the skill set of driving paid traffic and turning that paid traffic into customers really, really quickly in order to recoup my money. Because if I was complacent about it, if I had this, freedom of spending a lot of money on my ads, I would probably never have mastered this skill, And of course, to the same extent, if I didn't have any money at all, that would have probably been even worse.
Right. Let's talk about a little bit about this notion as we're into marketing, because so many authors, they really want their message to be shared, but then they cringe at the word marketer or marketing, and
Selling.
and selling. Oh my gosh, they're just no. If it's good, they'll sell. I'm like, that's a wonderful dream, but it's not true. So you got to shake that loose. If you're listening and you're author, you think I'll write a good book and then it'll sell if it's good. No, best-selling books are the best sold books, best marketed books, and people know about them. They don't necessarily have to be the best written books, and that's really hard sometimes for people to hear who are literary critics. But what I want people to hear is, as you're doing this, because you're writing this book, you're sharing this book to the world. It's a topic, about email marketing. So you're obviously, that's the context. But what would you say to the author who says, I just don't want to do any marketing?
Well, I'd remind them the story behind Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody who wants to be an author is familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and his, just enormous success. Well, in his book that he co-authored with Donald Trump, he tells the story of how he self-published it because he got rejected by 24 different publishers, and that when he self-published it, it was not a bestseller, not by any means. However, what happened was that his book was picked up by, I think, if I'm correct, I think it's Amway or one of their leaders or something like that. So it's an MLM organization, and it just spread throughout the organization. And as a result, somehow it ends up on Oprah's desk. And then, Robert was at the time on vacation in some distant location, no phone, nothing. When he comes back, there's like a message from Oprah's people. He goes on Oprah, they talk about the book. The lights go off, the camera shuts down. Oprah turns around, on this couch that she usually sits on. She turns to Robert and she says, "You're welcome. I just sold 1 million copies of your book." So you can, here's this great book that changed many, many lives, my own including. And the whole process of it becoming a bestseller had a lot to do with the way it was sold and promoted rather than with it being a good book, because publishers couldn't really recognize it. And there's another great forgotten story where you had two different authors come to publishing houses back in the 1930s with the same book. Okay, same exact book, different title and different author. Okay, and basically it was one author with two different names, right? So they just mailed the book in. And the contents of the book was exactly the same. There was no difference in the table of contents and in the words written. Just the title was different slightly, and the author was different. So one book got rejected every single time. The other got accepted in every single publishing house. And the reason is because the one that got accepted was was written supposedly by this famous author. That this guy was actually a famous author, and the other one was just a created pen name that no one knew. So this tells you that a book can be published just because it's been published by somebody famous. For example, if Donald Trump, right? So he's a controversial guy. So imagine he's publishing another book. It's gonna be accepted. If Tim Ferriss says, "Okay, I'm gonna write a book about gardening," trust me, someone's going to want to, publish it. So marketing has a lot to do with how your book is going to sell. And, if marketing had nothing to do with it, then most published authors would probably be selling thousands upon thousands of copies on Amazon, which they do not. In fact, my book qualifies for the self-help business category, right? And I was just talking to somebody who just deals with books a lot. And I was asking them, what do I need to do to make this into a bestseller? Well, they said, all you have to do is just sell more than 50 copies in the year that you release the book. And I said, why? He says, because on average, a self-help author sells less than 50 books a year. And we also have to remember that some of these copies are the actual copies the author himself or herself is buying to give as a gift, to people they want to, like family members or whatever. So, we launched the book. We sold 500 copies physical and 2,000 Kindle copies in the first week. Bam, Amazon bestseller. Why? Because we launched it to our email list of people who knew us and trusted us and wanted to actually read our book. But not because the book was so great. I mean, it helps, right? I'm really hopeful that the book is good.
Right.
I am biased, but I really hope that it is good and people like it. But there's somebody posted a 1-star review for the book. I mean, I appreciate their honesty, but it kind of hurt a little bit.
Right. It can poke your ego, but you're right. So, I think if you leverage the authority of your book, you use the authority for whatever purposes you have fit. So maybe it's to draw people to you. Maybe it's to give you more opportunities so you can get better speaking deals. Maybe it's so that you can have that banner, orange banner that says Amazon bestseller, so that you can write in other publications. You just got to be clear about why you're writing the book and who you're trying to help. And everyone can have an email list. I want everyone to listen to this. And I'll have Igor, because he's the expert, talk about this. To launch a book, you just need people that Igor said who like, know, and trust you. That's what marketing really is. It takes a while to get people who don't know you to like, know, and trust you. But if you have family, friends, acquaintances, workmates, neighbors, you can get an email list. You can start with something. And those people are enough to get you to have 5-star reviews, to get ranked in Amazon, to get you going. You got to start somewhere. So I want people to let go of this idea that you don't have an email list, you don't know what you're doing. People that know, like, and trust you will be your email list. And that's where you can start if you don't have anything.
Well, I never actually used that strategy. In fact, I think the people who, like my relatives and friends, I don't think I sent out the copies of my book to them yet. But what I've always done is I will always focus on the who. So one thing you just said was get clear on who you're writing to, right? Get clear on who you want to get the book. And I think the moment you pick your niche or pick your tribe, really, really, like, just target your tribe real well, you won't have as much trouble getting this book out there. Because people out there are seeking solutions to their specific problems, to their specific identities. Meaning that, like, imagine you're in a drugstore and you got this massive headache. And so you've got, you approach the headache shelf and there's two bottles of pills. One is a headache pill. It just says headache pill for, males over 30, whatever. And the other one right next to it is a big blue bottle. It just says the blue pill that fixes everything. Right? So most likely, if you've got this raging headache, you will get the headache pill because it's specifically designed for headaches rather than just a generic solution. So if you're not sure whether or not anyone will even buy your book or want to get your book, you can increase the chances of them wanting to do so, even if you don't necessarily want to put it in the hands of friends and relatives. Maybe you want to write about something a little bit controversial. Maybe you've got a pen name which you don't want them to know about, etc. For example, I got a friend who's divorced, and he's making really good money online. I'm talking over $100,000 a month. And I'm like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you, write a book, this? And he says, no, I don't want my wife to find out. Like, my wife doesn't know what I do. She doesn't know what I make. And I don't need her finding out because she's going to want more money. So, if you don't have the luxury of having, support of your loved ones and your friends, then just narrow down the niche market you're writing to, and you'll be surprised how this niche market just will go for it because of the specificity of the solution. Meaning that don't just write a dating advice book. Write a dating advice for women over 40. Don't just write a how to make money online book. Write a book how to make money by posting on Instagram for stay-at-home moms. You know what I mean? Like, you have to really narrow it down. And the more narrow you get, the better are your chances at having this book kind of sell itself when these right people come across the title. Yo, it's Igor. If you're loving the content, hop on over to listbuildinglifestyleshow.com for more free training and a free transcript of this episode. Oh, and I'd really appreciate if you logged into iTunes and rated the show. It really helps. Thanks.
Wonderful. So let's talk about that. So how did you choose your niche for your book?
Well, for me, it was simple. I have a huge advantage over most authors because I had a market going in. So I became, I was profitable with my business way before I decided to write a book because And to be quite honest with you, the very reason why I procrastinated about writing a book for so many years is because I didn't feel I was qualified. Like, why would anyone listen to me, kind of thing, right? Which is this imposter syndrome that's a part of all of us, I think. I never met anyone who doesn't have that. So when it comes to books, I always felt you have to be like the chosen one to write a book. Until I started hanging out with some authors and I realized, oh, wait a second, they're like just as dysfunctional as I am. So going in, I knew who my market is because I've been in this business of helping people make money online, helping people build email lists, helping people promote their online businesses, services, information products, etc. for such a long time. So I had my ideal customer avatar down to a T. And, the amount of time I spent on just fine-tuning this avatar, well, just a lot of time. So by the time I sat down to write a book, it wasn't a challenge. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I knew exactly who I was talking to, and I knew exactly how to deliver the message because I had many, many years of experience delivering that message to different crowds. What I can suggest to you is you probably have a much easier time writing your book if you sit down, come up with your, ideal customer avatar, and then pretend you're talking to them on the phone. Literally, as they just called you up and asked you that big question that's on their mind. And let's pretend you spend the next 60 minutes on the phone with them, giving them all the know-how, the details, or telling them your story, whatever that is. So if you pretend that's what you're doing, but only in writing, or you can just record yourself do it and then just transcribe it, that's like 80% of your book. The rest, you just got to format it, clean it up a little bit, maybe enhance some stories over here, reduce some clutter over there, cut the fat, and that's your book. From there, now you have to, publish it, get the cover going, maybe submit it somewhere, maybe someone want to print it, and so on and so forth. So it's the who that's most important, in my opinion, that you need to start with if you're still uncertain about what to write about or whether anyone will actually want to get it.
Great. Knowing the who is so important. So I had a guest on here, her book, she's a therapist. She helps couples, but her book is How to Be Happily Married Even If Your Partner Won't Do a Thing.
Nice.
And really specific, really niche down, getting rid of the excuses. It really helps for her business. It drives new traffic every day. One of the things that you said is really helpful is spend so much time knowing who your ideal reader is, who you're trying to attract, so that the title and conversation of the book alone will get them to say, ooh, that's my pain or problem. I need this help. So let's talk about what you did to get this book out of you. Did you transcribe it? Did you have someone write it for you? What was the method that you did to get this book out of you? And did you publish traditionally, self-publish? What was sort of your means of getting this book to the world?
Sure. So I've had 3 attempts. I've had 3 goes at this book. The first one was I just decided to, hire someone who will get it out of me, and then they would sort of put it in the book. So this person, I won't mention any names. I'm still frustrated with them. But this person came recommended, and they said, okay, so I got this system. We have 10 interviews. We will figure out the outline of your book first, and we do the 10 interviews, for 10 chapters. Then when we're done, I'm going to take it to my editor. They're going to polish it up. We're going to come up with an e-cover or a cover, and we're going to publish it through Amazon self-publishing platform, which is, I think it's called KDP, right?
Right.
So I'm like, okay. And so I pay this guy $10,000. And it takes them 8 months to conduct all the interviews with me. 8 months, can you believe it?
Wow.
No. True story, though. So 8 months to conduct all the interviews with me. And then they come back 2 weeks later, giving me literally word for word the transcript of what we've talked about on the interviews. No editing, no structure, nothing. Just literally just me blabbing for 10 hours on paper. I was so frustrated with them. I just cut that relationship immediately. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to write that book myself. And I sat down, and for the next month and a half, I devote about 90 minutes every single day from about 5:30 or 6 or so in the morning, till about 7 or 7:30. I sit down and I commit to writing 1,000 words a day. I really wanted to get that book out. And I do. I write 33,000 words, and this becomes this comprehensive guide, how-to guide on how to start and grow your email marketing business, promoting either your own or other people's products. So I'm really proud of this piece. I invested a lot.
Right.
And, the quality of the content was amazing. The only thing that I didn't consider is that it kind of turned out to be this guide, this technical guide, rather than a book. Because at that moment, I realized that all the great books that started me out on a journey and a relationship with authors, at least a perceived relationship that I have with these authors, they weren't really technical, were they? They usually just rolled around one big idea, and then it was sprinkled with maybe 3 to 5 other ideas in the book, but there was never a very specific how to do this, don't do that implementation stuff in those books, because that's not really entertaining. So what I do is I turn this piece that I wrote for so long into a product, into like a product I sell, to like a premium report, and I just sell it, but not as a book. Right? I just sell it to my audience, and I use it to generate new leads, and kind of leave the whole idea of the book on the back burner for about a year. Then, when I turned 30, and in Israel we say you switch a number, right? Because you go from 2 to 3, like the first number in the double-digit age. So when I switched the number, I'm like, damn it. Another year went by, still haven't published a book, still haven't done this, still haven't done that. And I put this book on my quote-unquote like bucket list, right? I have to get this done. At least one book, I have to get it out of me and publish it and actually become an author before, I'm just incapable of doing so. And what I do is I speak to a friend, or a mutual friend, and I ask them, so you've got this book and it got you a ton of publicity. Did you just write it, or did you use someone's services? And he suggests a friend's service. It's called 90minutebooks.com. It's by Dean Jackson, a friend of ours. And so, these guys are great at publishing. It's like creating smaller books that are designed to help small business owners to get customers. Same system though, right? You get on the phone, they interview you for 90 minutes about, what do you do for people and how do you help them and whatever. And they kind of format it and put it in a book format, as well as help you get a cover. Now, for me, that format didn't quite work. However, I used them anyway, because what I've done was I filled a missing gap that I did not know how to fill. It forced me into a position where I had to create a new outline for the book, and a portion of it I recorded with them. But then once I've got back the transcription, with formatting, I've realized that the whole structure of the book I didn't really like, and the delivery of the ideas that I've used when they interviewed me was also subpar, if you will, because I do have higher quality standards for myself. So I was like, yeah, this is not up to my standards. So what I do for the next 8 days, I take some parts of the book, I remove them completely, and I write whole new chapters, and I restructure it. So I take the baseline of what we recorded, but I restructured it and wrote a few chapters just instead of what I said on the call. And I end up with this really cool book. Then I get a cover going, and from there, it's literally just getting it launched, which for me was just a matter of creating a promotion for my email list, which is, again, why having an email list is such a great thing. And basically, I announced it to my list. I released it for a week, and I said, if you buy, between now and Sunday, I'll give you these bonuses with the book. All you have to do is just go on Amazon, grab the physical version, or grab the Kindle version, send me the receipt to this email address, and I'll get your bonuses. So as a result, we sold, like I said, we sold over 500 physical, or 400 physical, and over 2,000 Kindle. So there you go, instant bestseller status. So now I can brag about being a best-selling author, when in reality, all I've done was just mail my list.
Right. What's really great about that story is I think most people think that, if I just had someone write the book, or if I just had this or that. The truth is, you got to find what works for you. When I had Steve Sims on the show in episode 19, he talked about his process of writing the book. But he really wanted to have his voice. I mean, Steve's a pretty unique guy. I mean, you want to capture his voice. You don't want to lose that voice of his, that the early humble beginning voice. So it took a while finding someone to capture that. And so I'm glad that you realized, look, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if you're in the process of writing a book, you got to figure out that sort of groove for yourself. And if you have the right title, you know who it's for, and you have an email list, you're really looking at a really successful launch of a book. And that's why more and more publishers aren't looking for good books. They're looking for people with an audience, with an idea they think they can sell. So I know that it's really hard for people to understand that. The reason they probably picked up the book is somebody else told them about it, or they saw it on the shelf or at the airport. They didn't pick it up because this is the best book. It was constantly put in front of them. It spoke to them. It called them and said, this is my problem. This woman's going to solve my problem. I should try it. So I really appreciate that you talked about that. Will you write more books? Was this a book that you enjoyed, or was this like, woof, I crossed that off my bucket list?
Oh, I enjoyed it very much. In fact, I'm very proud of releasing it. I'm still unsatisfied with what it is. Meaning that I feel it could be richer, it could be bigger, it could be more entertaining, it could be more educational at the same time. But I had to commit to a deadline. Like, not because I had to, in terms of like, oh, I had a publisher who made me, but because I know that if you don't set a deadline, nothing gets done. So I committed to the version 1.0. This is something that I learned a long time ago when I got into the information marketing space. And that is, you can't really create a great product unless you commit to a crappy version 1.0. People like Bill Gates proved that you can be famous and make a lot of money, even if your product sucks, right? Because we had to endure like a good decade and a half of crappy Windows operating systems before it became anything decent and worthy of using. So as far as I'm concerned, this is my Windows 95. And so from here,
right,
I'm either going to expand on it and maybe just release an expanded version, or I may just write a totally different book with a different title. But this time, I know what the mistakes are that I've made in the first one. I know what the end result is supposed to look like now, and it'll be a completely different quality product for sure. When am I going to do it? Probably sometime later this year, because right now we are producing a bunch of new programs, so my time goes there. But as far as the book itself, it's the first one out of many, I'm sure.
Right. And you also have a podcast. I want to make sure we talk about that too, because it's another way to build an audience to pay attention who know, like, and trust you. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, why you created it, and how it kind of parlays into the message that you have in your book.
Yeah, sure. So the podcast is called the List Building Lifestyle Show, right? So it's kind of like the book. So the book is the List Building Lifestyle book, and the podcast is the List Building Lifestyle Show. And it was created a couple of years before the release of the book. Now, originally, the podcast wasn't created to get new customers, but rather to communicate with existing customers, because we had already a large customer base. And what we've noticed is that the people that we do best with, the people who are like the best customers, buy the most, behave well, and enjoy our products, are typically podcast listeners. And that's why it was originally created. And so I went on for a while just being me on the podcast. Every episode was just pure Igor. But then I started inviting people that were like authorities and celebrities within our space, as well as some really famous authors. For example, I've hosted Robert Kiyosaki on the show. I've hosted Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference. Like a bunch of people, really, over the course of a few years. If you want to, you can go to listbuildinglifestyleshow.com and see on the right-hand side there's a toolbar that kind of shows you a bunch of different names, including Mark Manson and Jeff Hoffman and a bunch of people. So that sort of became the theme, where I started inviting these superstars to my podcast. And what ended up happening is that I almost accidentally started getting more credibility in the marketplace as a result of just hanging out and having media with all of these superstars. And so that was like the other added benefit to it. Now, these days, I'm not as diligent about publishing the podcast. I've been kind of tied up with other projects, but I do intend to get back into it at the end of this month, because people literally ask me now. Like, I was speaking to a client yesterday, and they're like, "Is everything okay?" I was like, why? They're like, well, I noticed the podcast episode hasn't, gone out in the last 3 weeks. So I was wondering what happened there. So, like people notice. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So having a podcast is definitely a great tool to further communicate with your existing audience, where you can help them see and understand your philosophy, your vision, your personality. So all in all, it can hurt.
Right. No, that's exactly why I have a podcast. I want to get to meet awesome people like yourself, connect and communicate, but also it does support my clients, the people that have participated in my challenges or gone through my course, because I want to enrich their lives. I want them to have something to be able to reflect on and go, oh, that makes sense, or that episode triggered me to think about writing or doing something in this way, because you're amongst a really small segment of the population, not only because you have wealth, but because New York Times in 2008 said that 81% of, well, let's say North Americans want to write a book, but only 3% ever do. But even of those 3% that finish a manuscript, only 30%. So now we're talking a fraction of 1% ever hit publish, meaning they give it to a publisher or they themselves publish it. So that you're in a smaller class by just being an author than even being a millionaire. That's what's incredible about authorship, and I want to inspire and encourage people to know that their message is worth it. If they're an expert in anything, it's probably something they do really well and easily. They don't think of themselves as an expert. But I'm really grateful that you're here on the show. What other final words you have somebody who wants to get over this imposter syndrome you talked about and just get going?
Well, first off, I had no idea that less than 1% of people worldwide publish books, because when I look into Amazon, like there's a new book being published every 30 seconds. So it seems like I'm like too late to the party. And
Right.
that's really cool. That's really cool. As far as the people listening who are considering to write a book or wrote their manuscript and still haven't hit published or haven't sent it off to their publisher, if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, the bad news is that it never goes away. I mean, I can honestly tell you that even today, having made millions of dollars online, having published a book, having accomplished a bunch of things in my life that most people don't accomplish in their lifetime, it doesn't go away. Just a year and a half ago, I got this friend. His name is Luke. He's a hypnotherapist. And if you're ever in the Ontario or Toronto area and you're looking for a hypnotherapist, definitely check him out. So he actually specializes in the imposter syndrome. And I went to, I've done a hypnosis session with him. And I've never really recognized how profound and how deep this issue is until I went through a session with him. Now, it didn't cure me of it. I don't think you can ever get rid of it completely, but it just kind of made it more visible and made me aware of just how much of it is governing my personal life. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the imposter syndrome got in the way, still gets in the way of many, many different things. So that's the sad part. The good part is it's the kind of thing that is just an illusion in our perception of the way the world works and the way the people are. But the reality is, if you hit publish, even if you've got a crappy book, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to love it. Chances are, when you publish your book, you are personally going to hate it, regardless of what the rest of the world is going to think about it. But to sum up, look, there's no way of overcoming it unless and until you hit the publish button. So if anything, take it from me, somebody who published a measly 108 or 102 pages of a book, which is not even enough to really call it a proper book, to be honest with you. Like I've actually, one of the reasons why I procrastinated about publishing it was because it was very, very small. But even then, the same guy who I told you about, who was asking me about the podcast, like, why aren't you publishing more podcasts? He also told me that he was rereading my book for the third time. So there is a bunch of people out there waiting for your message, waiting for your life story, waiting for your big idea, waiting for the inspiration you will provide. And for as long as you're not providing them with it, you are doing them a huge disservice. So if you have a message in you, publish it, regardless of whether you think it's a great message, a crappy message, a repetitive message, or not. It's not about that. It's about you making an impact for someone else who's waiting to read your book.
Awesome. Could never have said it better, Igor. Amazing. Tell us where we go to find more about you and how we can support the work that you do.
Sure. So obviously you can go to Amazon and just search for List Building Lifestyle and get the book. And if and when you do, I would really appreciate honest feedback in the form of a review on Amazon. And yes, even if you feel it's a piece of crap and you want to rank it as 1 star, just do it. Just be honest. Like, as long as you're honest, we're cool. And you can also go ahead and check me out at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com, which will be a very easy and free way for you to get familiar with what we do, because that's the podcast, and we'll be talking about email marketing, making money online, building an email list, spreading your message in the form of information products and in the form of advanced and premium coaching programs. Basically, if you want to take your ideas and make millions with your ideas, then that's the place for you to check out.
Awesome. We're going to link that all up in the show notes, put the link to the book. Igor, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your truth.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Get access to previous episodes, the transcription of today's show, as well as other exclusive content at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. Also, don't forget to claim your free seat at the workshop I'm hosting this week, where I showed the 2-step system that made me the top affiliate for people like Matt Basak, John Crestani, Richard Legg, Michael Cheney, and many, many others. In fact, on this workshop, I'm going to show you the exact approach I take whenever I promote an affiliate offer, the exact offers I promote, as well as how I was able to make over $500,000 in commissions using my small list of just 18,000 people promoting a weird type of product that almost no one else promotes. All that is yours at igor.ac. So go ahead, claim your seat right now, and I'll see you there.